All right, here we go. I don't know when this. Oh, I got to start the music.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bring us some figgy pudding.
What's figgy pudding?
Bring us some figgy pudding. Bring us some figgy pudding and bring it right here. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We once know.
Hey guys, I will explain this craziness in just a little bit, but just wanted to say welcome to Cheerful Conversations. All right, let's bring it on here. What is up, everybody? This is episode 15 of Cheerful Conversations. I am here with my amazing host. All my hosts are amazing, but I love this one so much. Angela Mondor. Welcome, Angela.
Hi, hi, hi.
Yay. I'm just going to try to clear my screen a little bit here, and we're just going to get the show on the road. Today's episode theme is called Being at Choice, and this is such a great theme. It's been definitely prevalent in my life lately, and kind of that realization of when I am at choice and when I'm not. But we'll dive into some of that content in just a little bit. I just wanted to let Angela introduce herself. So Angela, can you tell everybody who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Angela Mondor, but a lot of people know me as the Geeky Girl. And in fact, sometimes people will say, hey, Geeky Girl. And other people in the room will be like, oh my God, did you just call her that? But that is who I am, true to my nature. Absolutely love technology. I am a virtual business manager, so I help you with your business to get organized. I focus on productivity and planning.
Yay. And of course, it's all of the productivity stuff that we both geek out on. Ooh, looks like I got to turn down my ringers. I almost got, there's just like, there's so many distractions, but that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And how did we meet? Oh, wonderful. Was that April 2016 at the first?
Yes, that we met in person. Yes.
We met in person. So we were part of a mastermind, and which was the Adventurous Entrepreneur Mastermind hosted by Emily Utter, which if she ever sees this, hello, Emily. It was a year-long program that was focused on helping grow your business and loving it and thriving. And what was her tagline? It was like something traveling the world, or
working from anywhere. I don't know.
But building a business you love while traveling the world. So everybody was all over the place, and from all walks of life, Europe, Canada, Mexico, all over the place. So Angela is in Canada, Winnipeg, right?
You bet.
And so she is, I guess, straight up north, same time zone and everything, but we are so far away and we haven't seen each other since that 1 week, right?
No, in fact, I mean, Winnipeg is called Little Chicago, right?
Oh,
and
I didn't know that.
When I was in Chicago, you weren't in Chicago, so we weren't able to connect. It was crazy.
I know. So we just gotta work on that a little bit better. But we have had so many times where we've like done virtual co-working together, little mini dance parties, just venting about life and all of those things. And it's been a really great journey, and I'm so glad. We actually haven't talked that much this year. It's been crazy. It's been busy. So it's just great that I have this show to allow myself to connect to the people I care about. The next thing I wanted to ask you was, because I ask everybody this, is what do you geek out on? And I try to keep this to something non-business related, because we already know what you do, and most of the people I talk to have their passion embedded into their business. But what's something maybe some people wouldn't know about you, or just something quirky, unique, and yeah.
Most people don't know that I love gaming. And so I do some online gaming, but I also like tabletop gaming. So if you remember what Dungeons and Dragons might have been like, maybe you saw people at school playing it and they were the geeks. Yeah. So I play a version called Pathfinder these days, which is the same. It's by the same company and everything. It's just a different version of the Dungeons and Dragons. And it's great. You know what? To be honest, you want to learn storytelling? Play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, interesting. I can't remember the last time I played that, but when I think about like old school games, the ones that I loved the most, and okay, so the first was there was like on Nintendo back in the day, there was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 and 2, just the standard arcade game, whatever. I loved it. I used to play that with my brother all the time. And then Rampage was like the one where you're like punching the buildings and knocking them down.
Yeah.
And then Paperboy.
Yes, Paperboy, throwing the papers.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, if you aim it at the right place, it's like, where? Let's bring those games back. And I think some of them exist, but I always try to keep on looking. And, you know, my kids they're getting more into technology and all the different games. I mean, they're just like all about Fortnite and Minecraft right now. But,
some of those games you can actually get on your mobile devices, like Pac-Man, you can get as a mobile thing now. So it's kind of, and Qbert, if you remember, I don't know.
Oh, Qbert. Yes. I used to, my first gaming system was an Atari. I have no idea how all of that worked, but it was like my favorite things were like when you would just like spell and write things out. I was a geek in that way. Just loved it. Awesome. Okay. The next thing that I have to do is ask you a random icebreaker question. This is just all part of the usual warm up. I have no idea what this question is going to be. Are you ready? Okay. The question is, this is funny because I know what the weather is like right now by you, but the question is, complete the following. When it rains, I feel blank.
Ugh. I feel crappy. I feel unproductive and mopey and miserable.
So is that what you feel right now? Because it's raining outside, you said.
All day it's been very difficult to be productive, to be honest. But we all have days like that. So it's just about planning for them. But yeah, I feel much better now that I'm here with you, though.
Yes. So I'm your sunshine. You are my sunshine. Okay. I'm like in this like sing-songy mode. Maybe it's the hat. What was I going to say? When it rains here, it just downpoured yesterday as I was picking up my kids. And I think that there was this like, okay, I gotta do this. Like, I can't change what's happening. So I have to figure out how to like maximize the time. Right. I do feel mopey generally when it's not sunny out. And that's part of the whole like experiencing the seasons. I actually kind of enjoy it, even though like being in California or whatever is really nice. But there's this like, I have to conserve all of my energy and resources as much as possible to kind of still trudge through it. So that's just kind of what rain does to me when I feel that way. So yay, that was a fun and simple one. Okay, so this we're going to go into just kind of talking about the recurring segment that I do for every episode, which is Cheerful News. And I can finally explain what the dealio with the fancy hats, the Christmas themed songs and all of that. So my story, and I feel like this happens a lot because, there are unfortunate things that happen in the world and all of that. But one of the cheerful stories that I found was, starts with a sad story about a 2-year-old who has a terminal brain cancer, and he is I think they stopped treatment in the last month or so. His name is Brody Allen. So I'm going to say hi in case he ever sees this, or his family. And so what was cheerful about this story and how they turned this unfortunate situation is kind of understanding that this is probably, his last, year or so, or months even. They decided to celebrate Christmas early. So they actually did it in this past week, and they decorated their house and basically treated it as if it was Christmas. And they live in Cincinnati, so there's no snow yet. But he probably doesn't know the difference anyways. So what I loved about this story was that the entire neighborhood has rallied around it and decorated their houses too. So it was almost like Christmas in September, which, you hear Christmas in July, but this is Christmas in September. They did a parade and they did all these things. People were sending gifts, and it has become such a big outpour of love and support for this situation that, as I was reading the article, they said that they started this Facebook group to try to gather as many decorations as possible. By the time I got into the Facebook group, there were about like 17,000 plus people in this group. And it's just amazing how much love can be poured into and how much love there is out there. And sometimes we forget about that. And so I just wanted to, send some love from Chicago and Angela too from Canada for Brody. I hope he has a very, very Merry Christmas. I actually did post in the Facebook group and told everybody, like, this is so inspiring. All the love that's being shared here. I want to do a shout out on my show. So hi everyone, if you happen to be seeing this. And I just love the fact that, just the community coming together. And it's things like that, we have to band together, as much as possible, no matter what's going on, happy, sad. And, I love that. So that's my cheerful story. And Angela, what's your story? Unless you have anything to comment on my cheerful story before you start. Uh-oh, I cannot hear you.
And that's all my fault. Sometimes you hear cars go by and stuff, so I mute it because you were talking and I didn't want to take away from that. So I know, right? But anyway, I think it's great when a community comes together, when they band up and try to give the best possible outcome to a situation. I think that's awesome. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, I think my story also kind of starts cranky and miserable in its feeling, because in my local city, there's a young boy who was getting bullied at school. Mm-hmm. And he actually had gone to Facebook to talk about this bullying and what was going on. And there was getting some attention around this bullying post that was made through Facebook. And the school said, you have to take the Facebook post down or you're going to be expelled or whatever. And the parents stood behind him and said, no, like, this needs to be addressed. We need to talk about it. And he stood his ground. He was 12 years old, stood his ground. He picketed in front of his school. He's gained attention from the media, which was awesome. And now the school is actually implementing some anti-bullying or some, awareness. And so hopefully he has now made a shift inside his own school so that it's not just about him and his bullying situation, but he gets to help so many other students who are also going through bullying in this particular school. And maybe this will be another spurring moment for other schools to go, hey, let's look at what they're doing over there and let's help our students as well. So I
love that. And so this is in your area, right?
Yep.
That's amazing. We've had similar stories like this on prior episodes where kids are standing up for what they believe in. And I just love that. I just, to be so empowered to stand up for your truth at such a young age is so important. And I love that these two stories are really going to, add to the conversation that we're going to have very shortly about being at choice, because, there have been rules in the past where we felt like we were at the mercy of everybody else and not being able to have that choice, but to see people at a young age standing up for themselves and speaking their truth is just, it just makes me so happy, because I think that a lot of times in my life, I didn't speak my truth, and it wasn't that that people were treating me unfairly or anything, but it was like I was almost just scared to do so. So yeah, I love it. Two great stories. And, sometimes, from the pain and sorrow of certain situations comes this like beauty and magnificence. And we have to also make sure that we highlight that, because we can't just spend our entire lives just dwelling on the negative, right? This is why I do what I do. And I try as much as possible, of course, acknowledging that sometimes sucky stuff happens, but we always have to look at the bright side.
Well, and think about these children, their parents, how instrumental their parents have been to stand behind them, to give them what they need. We have these great children out in our universe that are doing some great things, and their energy will just flitter away if they don't have the support they need to actually bring their voices to light. So, shout out to the parents too behind these children to be able to give them what they need.
Woot woot. Awesome, awesome parents. Okay, so are we ready to talk about this whole concept of being at choice?
I am. I'm going to take off my hat though, because it's yeah.
Should I take off mine? Let me see. I'm gonna leave it on. I'm gonna leave it on. This is for Brody. If I can figure out how to like. Okay.
It's all good.
I know. It's like, oh, there's this little thing. Okay. So
look how cute.
Being at choice. I am choosing. I am at choice of leaving this crazy thing on my head. Okay. So I just want to start with a simple question of when was the last time you were not at choice?
Jeez.
I know. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer this question.
I mean, I think that we have moments all day long, every day, where we have this choice, especially as parents. I mean, not that people who don't have children also don't find themselves in these situations, but I think that sometimes our choice isn't necessarily based on what we individually would make as a decision, but we make a decision as maybe part of a group or an organization and sometimes a family. Mm-hmm. But when was the last time I wasn't at choice? That's a really tough decision or a really tough question, because I've worked for a long time to be in choice. Mm-hmm. But, I certainly know that back, I think that I've always been in choice. I just don't always make the best choices. And so it feels like I'm out of choice.
I agree. I was trying to think about as you were talking, when was the last time? And yes, it's true that sometimes we subconsciously will even make choices that aren't the best choice. Whether or not we are at choice is a question, but sometimes there's so many external factors that can impact that, right? Like, I want to be a loving parent. I want to be supportive. I want to be calm and patient and all of those cheerful, all those things. But this morning, my kids, and this has been a theme that's been going on as we're getting ready to go to school, where my kids are super playful and I love them for that. But then there's like a time and a place, right? It's just like, okay, if you're going to wake up at 7:30 and we need to be out the door at 8:15, there's not a lot of time to get dressed, brush your teeth, eat your breakfast, pack up your backpack and go. Right. And so I am like clockwork, like go, 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 go. I have these like checklist sheets. Oh my God, if I had one of them on here, that I have my kids, like I'm literally drill sergeanting my kids, and I'm trying to teach them routines and habit and all this stuff. And it's working. So don't judge me, but it's one of those things where it's like, okay, I want to give you as much time to sleep, but when you get up, you better like stay on task. And my kids have issues with focus sometimes. And so they're like joking around and playing and kicking each other in the nuts and all the things that young boys do. And Ryan, my youngest, was, we told him to put his milk in the fridge, but then he stepped back and he tripped on our dog, and Oliver was like, ah! Like squealing. And Ryan literally like fell and sat on him, spilled milk everywhere. And we're already 2 minutes late to leave the house. And out of nowhere, I'm like, this is what I'm talking about, blah, 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 like screaming. And people don't think that I do this, but I totally do. And I was like, get your shoes on and get in the car. Like, but a lot louder and a lot meaner. Yeah. And at that point, like I wouldn't have chosen to react that way. But sometimes situations can get us so stressed out, or different things can happen. And, we can't control some of these things. But I think that the bigger piece of being at choice is kind of knowing, because there's bigger issues, like when you're not at choice, or you're doing something because somebody told you to, or because you feel guilty because XYZ reason. If you don't do this, then something will happen. Or if you do this, something will happen. And letting an external outcome or possible outcome that is not guaranteed dictate how we live our life. And I think that is definitely like a big journey that I've been on, to say, when have I let somebody else dictate my life? This is just kind of like the journey that I've been on. And so when we talk about trying to be a choice, it's really, starting with that whole awareness of, sometimes we do actions subconsciously. We don't even think about it because it's out of habit, it's out of routine. But is that the way we want to live? And is that the way we want to look at things? So, going back to this whole concept of, a lot of the world tends to default to negative because it's kind of wired in our systems. And unfortunate things happen and they carry so much more weight than the happier times that we sometimes forget. But if we were to choose to be happier in moments, no matter what is going on, we are that much more in a powerful situation to affect the outcomes that we want rather than letting the outcomes happen to us.
And I think that we talk about default setting, right? Like, are we default set to be negative or are we default set to be positive? And, having, come this far in life, I think some people are born with a default setting to be negative. And I think some people are born with a default setting to be positive. But I don't think that we have to live by that. I don't think that you need to be that. If you feel like you're a default negative, doesn't mean to say you have to live default negative. And same as positive, if you feel like you're a default positive and you don't like it, I mean, well, that's up to you. You can change and be default negative. That's up to you. Yeah. It's all about choice. And I think that, I haven't always been default positive choice. I've certainly had moments. I remember having my kids young, trying to get them out the door, freaking out and losing all my crap. And, like losing all my brain cells, trying to scream at them to get them out the car. Like, I remember those things. I remember being in those positions. Mm-hmm. And coming through the things that have happened through my life and really doing some internal work. Where do I want to be? Where do I want to live? And I default positive every day. In fact, I think it annoys some people, but I don't care.
Because you choose to not care, right? And I love that, and I think that too, even though I'm the cheerful mind, there's been times where I'm, even as who I am right now, and I say this all the time, where I'm not the happiest. There's just days that just suck. And if I can be in a place where I can just choose to accept this crappy day, like there's just days where nothing's going for me. I'm exhausted, and I might just choose like, okay, I'm going to just like let myself veg out today, and I'm going to just try again tomorrow. And I do that out of choice. Whereas before I would like mope about certain things for like 1 to 2 to 3 days to weeks and just continue to let it like sit there and drain me and drain everybody else around me. And so when I had to kind of realize that I kind of hit my rock bottom, I'm going to always hit this thing. When I hit rock bottom, it was like, I don't want to live this way anymore. And I started to push people away because it was like, I don't want to be impacting people. I know that I have an energy that can be infectious, but it's like, when it's good, it's good. But when it's bad, it's really bad. And I don't like putting that out there. So, but I knew that I wanted to be in a place where it was just, it felt natural and normal to be positive as much as possible. I know it's not 100%, but.
Well, and it's not 100%. I mean, I as much as I default positive in all situations, in my own head, mm-hmm. I don't default positive every time. Right. Yeah. So somebody brings me a problem and I'm like, okay, there's a good solution to this, whatever. And we can go through it. But I do have depression. I also have ADHD, which is absolutely hilarious and fun. Those two generally come sort of hand in hand anyway. And when I do have the bouts of depression or the time of depression, it is also choice to be able to say, yeah, it's really crappy right now. I don't like what I'm currently feeling. And I realize that I'm underneath this black cloud. But I do know that this is not how every day of my life is going to be. I know that there's going to be another day that mm-hmm. isn't like this. So you're right. We're not, just because I say I default positive doesn't mean that I default happy. It's different to me.
It's true. Absolutely. Is there any like defining moment for you where you had the awareness that you were defaulting to, I'm assuming so, because this is the topic, and I know that this is kind of what spurred us to talk about this, but what was that defining moment that was just like, hey, or maybe there's multiple, moments that were just like, hey, this is not the way that I want to live, and I'm going to make a change?
Well, I think that in my life and in my business, I think that in each side of my life, I had defining moments. And some of them were slow and gentle before they smacked me upside the head. And other times they were like, a smack upside the head. So I certainly had a business moment where our mastermind, as it was, I allowed myself to choose somebody else's choices. And that's where that came from. I gave my power, my own personal power and my own personal business power, over to somebody else. And rather than choosing, and this is the piece, like, I made the choice to do this. I did choose, but it wasn't a good choice. And at some point, I didn't realize that I had lost my choice. I had given my choice away. Mm-hmm. And then there was a feeling of guilt that maybe I shouldn't rock the boat. Angela has always been the non-boat rocker, right? I grew up in a situation where I was just supposed to do what I was told. And if I stepped out of line, it wasn't good, which leads to what happened in my personal life. The minute I became much more empowered, the minute that I started to make changes in my life, which our situation happened in 2016, 2017, something like that. And so I had a personal rock of my boat in 2015. So during that entire process, 2015 through 2017 was like this great big huge atom bomb in my life, which was, fantastic in the end. Mm-hmm. But so as I became more empowered and as I chose to rise up and be living in more choice and choosing more positivity and speaking my own truth through that process, I actually lost my mother. Mm-hmm. So not that she died, but she chose not to be part of my life anymore or her grandchildren's lives anymore, simply because, I don't know why. I can only just assume, when somebody removes themselves from your life, you can only just assume because you can't ask those questions. Mm-hmm. But it seems to coincide with the fact that I was no longer the good girl anymore. I wasn't just towing the line, and I was standing up for myself. So I think that my journey was learning that giving somebody else my choice was actually a choice.
Yeah. Totally. Right. I know that I think I say this in my book, and I say this all the time, when people are, they say like, oh, you're telling me that I need to plan, but I don't want to plan. And I'm like, okay, you're just planning to not have a plan. It's like, you're still doing it, but that was the choice that you made. And I wanted to back up a little bit, because I know that you were talking about our mastermind, and I've definitely mentioned this in many circles. And I want to talk a little bit about too, we both experienced different but similar situations with that mastermind. And for me, it was interesting because I had just come out of a coaching program that was all about the empowered choice and being at choice. And then I went into this mastermind, which was like, let me give you the steps on how you can grow your business. I was a very brand new coach. I didn't know what to do. And so I wanted that support and guidance, and to be walked through that process. But then what I was realizing and being reminded as I was going through this program was that I actually knew a little bit more of what I wanted. And it wasn't, the steps of what we were going through to go through this program were not in alignment with my values, and not in alignment with a lot of things that I was doing. And not to say that the program was awful, because it wasn't. It wasn't what I needed in that moment. And maybe it was in January, but by the time I got to, October, it was absolutely not what I needed. And so I had to, I was in that same boat of like, should I stay or should I go? And I actually left the program. And it was the scariest thing that I had to do, to stand up for myself and say, I know I committed to this thing for a year, but it is not what I need right now. And I have to make a different choice. And so I feel like, you know, there was a lot of resentment at the time. I was just really, really frustrated, but I didn't really have an outlet to explain what I was going through. But as soon as I stood up for myself and kind of let the volatility of the situation kind of wash over me, I had a choice to continue to be resentful about the experience and the money I invested and all of these things, or I could choose to be grateful for what could have resulted from that, right? And so we talk about this all the time where, you know, had I not been in that program, I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have made half of the contacts that I did in all of 2016. I wouldn't have met my dear friend, accountability partner, Gary Ware, who, you know, is like a big staple in my life right now. I just don't think that I don't think that I would have found the coach that I have right now, who I've had since I left that program. Like, what else is there? There's just so many things I don't think that I would have had access to if I wasn't exposed to all of that. And so choosing to be grateful for all of those things. And there is like, I did get some really valuable content from that program. And so it's not to say, you know, but it was just, I had to pick and choose what things work for me. And so it's interesting though. And then I'll let you talk, because I feel like I've been talking a while. I feel like I have been struggling with this trigger of like, you know, people who have these business programs and are saying like, hey, I'm going to teach you all the things that you need to know. And, you know, I'm going to charge you an arm and a leg for it. That triggers me because it is, you know, sometimes there are fundamentals and there are good programs out there, but at some point you're going to have the confidence to make your own choices. And when that happens, it will suck if you are tied to this thing that doesn't serve you anymore. So I've been trying to, you know, since then, trying to deal with that and knowing that, okay, you know, that program did serve its purpose. You know, other people, I will probably see other people invest in courses like that, but are we all going to end up in this place where we realize that like we actually know more than we think we do, and we have to trust our gut? Because I think that actually is what it comes down to in the end of it. Because when I joined her program, I was like, I don't know what to do. I can't do this. And I did really well by following her instructions, but it was very short-lived because then I was feeling like it wasn't serving me. So, blah, 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 things.
Well, and it's interesting because, you know, like you said, when it happened, because I did the same thing, I ended up leaving. I think I left about a month after you. But it was also scary for me. I didn't know what the ramifications are going to be. And, you know, to be honest, I was worried, what is she saying about me behind my back? I was worried about whether or not it would ruin relationships and friendships that I had built while I was in, because we were in a mastermind. So we were all in the same place. It wasn't like we were individual, you know, people with her. And so I did have that immediate feeling of, oh my gosh, if I do this, what is it going to be like? You know, are people going to look bad at me for doing it? And so learning to rise above and to make the choices for ourselves was really, really important for me to grasp as a human being. Mm-hmm. And the one thing it taught me was to take control of my own business.
Yeah.
To really make serious thoughts about what I wanted to accomplish in my business. And it also led me to, I believe I'm a better coach because I know what it is that is important to me and the other people who I worked with through the mastermind, right? The friends that I made and the conversations we had after. Mm-hmm. And it made me more resilient for sure. But on the same point, I have a meetup that was one of the things that she encouraged us to do, was to create a local meetup. And I've had that meetup running since then. So it's been over 2 years now that I've had that meetup. And it's fantastic and fun, and we have a great time. And, but the concept that it taught me in its most core was to be very, very mindful of what it was that I wanted before walking into something. So it's like you said, you didn't know, and you were just waiting for her to give you all the answers. And now my choices are different. Now, when I go to make a choice, whether it's a mentor or a group or some other mastermind, I look at the situation and say, I want to get XYZ out of this. How is this in line with that?
Yeah.
So how do does this line up before I get there? Because I just assumed by the conversations I had with her, I assumed I was going to get what I needed. Mm-hmm. But what did I need? And so now it's more about what is it that I need before I walk into the situation and making sure it's in alignment. And for some people, her course was fantastic. Some people did really great. And so it's more about whether or not something's in line with what it is that you want as your business goal and dream, like which direction you're headed, which is why it's so important, right? To plan. You said, people, they plan. And if you don't plan, then you're just using somebody else's plan, which was what I did that year. Literally, I was caught in a moment before I had made my plan for the next upcoming year. And I allowed her to plan my year. Yeah, that's just what it was.
And I think even maybe, that could be beneficial for people, right? The whole planning to not have a plan and just saying, let's just see what comes of this. But then also it really just depends on where you are in that storyline, right? If you have like a very set, this is what I want to accomplish and this is what I need to do. And then you go do these things and you don't see those results. It's like, there's just a lot of frustration that can be there. And sometimes people don't even know what they want. And so it makes sense that people would sign up for programs like that and whatnot. And I think what is interesting too is, when I look at some people who, might be potential clients of mine or whatnot, they all know that I'm growing my own business and they may be coaches and looking to grow their own business as well. And I tell them, I'm totally here. I can give you all the content and all the knowledge that I've learned. But the big thing here is that I want you to be at choice. I will give you all of the tools to make the decision on what works best for you, because I firmly believe that there are at least 5 or 6 different ways to accomplish the same thing, right? And so you need to be able to know what's out there and be able to have that like brainstorming session to say like, okay, I can go either which way. And if you tell me, Apryl, I just want the answer, you tell me what you think is best, I'll do that. But I want you to be able to be at choice to say, Apryl, tell me what to do. Right. And then I will help you with that, because, I think that there's also that piece of like, you just don't have the confidence to make that choice. And I think that that's where we as a society, like a lot of the reason why we aren't at choice is because we don't know how to make a decision that is confident and clear, because we don't always know the right answers. And we will tend to make decisions very easily if we're confident of the outcome. But if we're not confident of the outcome, that's where everything starts to go murky and haywire. So
yeah, that's totally true. Yeah,
absolutely. So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about in terms of just being at choice, how do people start to do this? Because I'm assuming that people are going to be watching this and saying like, when am I not being at choice? And, we already talked about this whole, you need to have the awareness that you're not being at choice in order to be able to be more at choice. But what are some like tactics that we can or tools that we can give people to kind of start flexing this being at choice muscle?
Well, I think some of my favorite things to talk about is when we have 2 choices when we realize we're not at choice. So we've just come through a situation, whatever that situation is, you're on the other side, or maybe you're in the middle of it and you're like, I am not making the decision I want. I'm making this decision for somebody else. Number 1 is, like you said, awareness. Just be aware that you're in that situation. Now, don't shit on yourself. That's the next part. Don't go, oh, well, I should do this or I should do that. Or, stop kicking yourself for making that decision. That's a decision that's programmed. We're making our decisions out of habit, and you're going to continue to make your decisions out of habit. It's about changing that habit. So maybe next time you're in the same position. You've done the exact same thing, but you caught it a little bit earlier. Now you, again, don't shit on yourself. Just aware. Just be aware of the fact that you've made that decision. And then eventually, if you continue to find that awareness, you continue to find yourself in that position where you can recognize that you're making choices for other people, then you begin to see those situations earlier, and you get to see those situations before they become aware, before you've made the choice. You may still make the choice for somebody else, and that's okay. Again, not shooting on yourself. You may still go, oh, I'm still afraid. I'm still going to make that decision for that other person. That's okay. But you're aware before you made the decision. Hallelujah. Then when you continue to bring your awareness, some people it takes longer and some people shorter. So don't shit on how long yourself, or don't, how long it takes you to get there. But you get to a point eventually where you go, no, you know what? I'm not going to make that decision anymore. I know that decision is for somebody else. It's not for me. And I don't want to live that way anymore. That's when you get to turn the tables. But for some people, they're lucky maybe, and they get to quickly recognize it and move on. And other people, it takes years, months. But just the awareness factor, I think, is the most important part. And then celebrate the fact that you caught it earlier and earlier, rather than shooting on yourself for still making the same mistake.
Yeah, and there was another thing that kind of came up in my mind when you were talking about just this whole concept, right? We don't want to just have to dissect every single thing that we do and be like, am I being a choice now? Am I being a choice now? Am I being a choice now? Because that's just overload, right? You have to pay attention to your emotions a little bit and see, because obviously if things feel good, then there's, it's like, don't fix what's not broken, right? So you don't have to go into this like, oh my God, I need to analyze every single little action I take. Oh, I'm gonna, I'm sitting in the shower for 5 more minutes than I normally do. Should I change it? It's not, that's not it. It is a balance of really using that awareness, but also like feeling your feelings. I know that it's like a very coachy thing to say, but feelings give you so much awareness and information, and for you to ignore that is just crazy in my mind. But
that's your gut, right?
Yeah,
we talk about all the time. People are like, "Oh, go with your gut." Well, what does my gut mean? Well, then 9 times out of 10, your gut is your feeling.
Yeah. So, but noticing when you have some sort of reaction that might be negative, that is like the easiest way to say, I'm getting upset about this. Is that how I want to show up?
This doesn't feel comfortable anymore.
Yeah, this doesn't feel comfortable. But if it feels fine, it's fine. I mean, I think a lot of times I struggle with this whole, when I choose what I'm eating, I'm always on this struggle of like, I should eat healthy. There I go, like
shitting on yourself.
I should eat healthy, and so I should, and then, but it almost makes me more anxious and more stressed out, knowing that I'm like, I can probably eat not as healthy, but then always worrying about people judging that I'm drinking a Gatorade, which I haven't had a Gatorade in months. But it's like stuff like that, where it's like, okay, there's these things on the shelf that people sell. Not all of them are healthy. Okay, so I eat fruit roll-ups. Like, what are you gonna do? Are you gonna judge me? I'm choosing to eat that fruit roll-up. God damn it! I'm gonna eat that fruit roll-up. But instead, like, a lot of times I'll feel guilty about like, oh, I'm driving into the McDonald's drive-thru again. It drives me insane. But it's like, I'm having those feelings because somebody else is telling me like, oh my God, you eat that crap. Like, yeah, I eat that crap. I'm sorry. And, people go ahead and judge me, whatever, because I don't care. Like, I don't do it excessively, but I feel guilty every single time I do. But that's just my life. So suck it up and deal with it. But
that's the other piece to it, right?
Yeah.
Understanding why you feel what you feel.
Exactly.
Because if other people are looking in on your life and saying to you, oh, you should be feeling poorly about your choices, then that's their reflection. That's their problem, not yours.
Yeah.
And, when we get to a point where we can actually say, I'm sticking this in my mouth, or I'm choosing to take a nap, or I'm choosing to work hard all night and not sleep for 4 hours because I'm trying to get this thing done, whatever, like whether you choose to hustle or not hustle or unhustle or whatever it is you choose to do in your life, if it feels right to you in your belly, in your core, not because of somebody else's opinion. And I think that's where I think women typically suffer with that one a little bit more than men do. but it's the outside voices of what you should and shouldn't do. And how do you filter them out so that you know what your own gut is actually telling you?
Yeah.
That's, I think, that's the money shot.
Yeah. Totally. And it's funny too, because, you know, we want to be the standard of like perfection. And, you know, I talk about perfectionism all the time. And yes, we know what's ideal. If I had the choice, if you gave me a steak with like a plate full of vegetables, like the healthiest thing, and fast food, if I were to just choose them and they were both put on a platter for me to choose, I would choose the steak, of course. But then you think about what actually has to go into, like, what effort I have to put into doing some of those things. Like, I can just go to the drive-through and it's downpouring and we have, you know, an hour and 20 minutes before we have to go to a Taekwondo class. Like, sorry.
If it had a steak drive-through,
filet o fish. It's just, it's the choice, right? I don't have the time all the time to make those nice meals, and I have to prioritize, right? I have to choose to prioritize to put more of that stuff in my body, because I know, you know, what you put in is you know, it really impacts what you put out. But sometimes you just gotta go through the drive-through and eat it. So I don't know. But good. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think it's very little. Trust your gut, trust your intuition, pay attention to your feelings. Always look for, you know, always know what your choices are. Because you can choose to be negative if you want to, or you can choose to be positive.
Well, and getting to know your intuition, because a lot of us have turned it off. A lot of us have, like I said, with my family situation, I learned not to pay attention to my own intuition because it didn't serve my mother. It didn't serve the family in the way that she wanted to be served. So I learned to turn it off. So now it's about, how do you turn it back on? And how do you know what it's that, like I said, that filter, like, is it somebody else's shoulds or is it my own? Like, where is it sitting?
So because you're a planner, I wanted to ask you, so like kind of looking forward at 2019, I've already started to kind of craft together my 2019 plan.
Love it.
I have been looking at this of, you know, how am I going to choose to be in 2019? Do you kind of have a sense of like what direction you're going to be going in terms of 2019 and where you can be even more at choice in your life?
I think that now, who I am as a human being, I'm constantly looking for more ways to be in choice. And I think that's my default now. So working on other things. So working through last year, which is this year, because it's like almost over now, right?
I'm already
in 2019. So, but 2018 was, my word of the year. I usually choose one word of the year, and 2018 was joyful rebellion. I was looking for more joy in my life and to bring more joy into my life, and that was what I was working towards. And I believe that I've done a really good job of that this year. Now I go through a reflection process in the last quarter of the year. It's some of my craziest time during the year, but I find reflection time anyway. And then I start to think, well, what is my next year going to look like? What is that, you know, what mantra or word am I going to take forward into? And I put it on my whiteboard so I can see it every day.
I have mine too.
Yeah. So I can keep an eye. Am I working towards that this year? So I don't know what 2019 is going to be from a word perspective.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting.
That's awesome. So mine was, I have two words generally. I don't remember already what my 2017 was, but 2018 was simplicity and visibility. And it's crazy to see every time I do this, and just, it's two simple words and how they really, like, they span like all areas of my life. And simplicity is like a very, very hard thing for me to deal with, because of the fact that I'm like always on the go. And so trying to make simpler processes in my business and in my life, and letting certain things go. You know, this year was a whole, you know, journey of trying improv and basically like trying to create in the moment instead of always having a plan, which is like, you know, the killer for people who are like productivity gurus and whatever. But there is that like balance that all of a sudden, I mean, and that's why this show is so like very little scripted, because I want to have some questions so that we're not like, what are we going to talk about now? But a lot of the things that we talked about, they just came out of nowhere, and there's so much power in that. And so I still have to do a lot of work on the simplicity side of things. I think I still was noticing that I would add things on my plate that I didn't need to, and being able to let go of that has been a huge theme. And then the visibility piece, like before we started the show today, I was like, could I just sing a song on a whim and like not hit the right notes and just do it live stream and like not care? Like, I remember in like February or sometime earlier in the year, I sat like for an entire day and was like recording myself singing on my computer, and then was deathly afraid to share it. And now I'm just like, like just acting like an idiot, and I don't care anymore. It's just amazing to see how much that's changed. But I've already, I think even halfway through the year, I started realizing what it is that I wanted for my themes. And I think one of my biggest struggles, that has been a struggle for me for the last like 2 or 3 years, is like asking for help. I cannot do it. I know that I'm trying, I'm getting better, but like, I feel like I need to dive into that deeper, because I still don't feel great about where I am. I a lot of times let external factors choose when I ask for help or not, such as everybody else has got their own problems, like they don't want to hear mine, or, you know, I don't want to ask for help because I could get rejected. And so it is very much tied into fear of failure, fear of rejection. And so that's kind of some of the inklings of what I see happening next year. And this year of just kind of reflecting on realizing that I have a lot of discomfort with space. So I'm going to probably take this whole not planning scenario to the second level. I still am going to plan, but almost the whole plan to not have a plan type of deal. You know, I'm going to be finishing improv. Like, I'm going to need a new hobby. I just sent out an email about that today. I was like, what am I going to do? But what if I just don't pick something? Like, what can happen there? And I think that the other piece, which is always has been a big trigger for me, is just the concept of wealth. So that's kind of like where I feel like I'm going. I think that I need to dive more into like my relationship with money. And it's not an easy thing to talk about. So it'll be interesting to see how those things, and being at choice is going to be all a big factor in all of that. But I think that those are the themes that are starting to creep up, but I need to like pick the words and be like committed to them. So we'll have to see how that kind of shapes up.
I just wanted to share something. While you were talking, this came up to me and I just needed to share it with you.
Do it.
Okay. So you were talking about, oh, geez, improv is ending now. What am I going to do? And here's what I thought of as soon as you said that. Okay. It's like, it'll push you completely out of your comfort zone, take it or leave it. But how about just a whole bunch of little things? Like go learn to crochet. And then one weekend, go learn to create samosas. And then one weekend, go learn to create chai tea, and just do random crazy stuff. And you never know what you'll find.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually been something that I've thought about. Like, I had this whole concept of like, what if I did a show about like how I'm going to learn how to do whatever, and like, and basically try an activity that I've never tried before, which is starting to dwindle because I feel like I've done so much, but to just like do little dabblings in totally a bunch of different things. Like, I've always wanted to like try bartending, right? Like, if I could like videotape it and just do all that, that would be super fun. But I mean, it would also be like a huge project that I would be taking on. So I need to think about that in terms of simplicity, because it's like, I got to go bigger.
Like your improv, do you do that once a week?
Yes.
So then just have 52 things, right? And just look for 52 classes or something, because there's classes all over the place. I mean, Chicago has lots of different kinds of classes.
That's true. That's true.
You have a local community center or whatever, and there's always something going on class-wise.
And if I didn't want to plan it per se, I could literally like crowdsource, be like, what do you want me to try? And I could just document it and video it and do like a bunch of little videos of like, here's Apryl trying this, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. That is actually a really good idea.
I went to a pottery class and I made this thing. I don't know what it is, but it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just a great way to like try different things and get myself out there. So it does expand on some of my things. I'm going to have to write that down, or I'm just going to watch this video again. That was a good idea. I actually do like that. So we'll see. We'll see. Because I'm like running out of stuff. And everything that I want to do right now doesn't take, like, it's not something that I want to like dive deeply into, right? Like I don't want to learn how to scuba dive or anything like that.
You don't want to take up a new language.
No. No, I mean, as cool as that would be, no.
No.
We shall see. But oh my gosh, we only have like 5 minutes, so I want to make sure that we end on or just kind of close things up a little bit. And as I always do, I always get like pools of different questions from people on my email list or people on social media and all that stuff. But I pulled this question, and it almost is very, I think we've covered it in so many different ways in this episode already. But the one question that I received a while back was how to stay positive and self-assured despite the setbacks and fears life presents. So we can probably either recap the if you didn't watch this whole hour episode and you're just watching the next 5 minutes, here is the summary, or something like that. And while Angela, while you're thinking of your answer to that question, this is just a reminder that if you do have questions for me and want them to be featured in a future show or in a blog or whatever, any content that I do, you can go to www.thecheerfulmind.com/AAA for Ask Apryl Anything. All right. So how do we stay positive and self-assured despite the setbacks and fears life presents? You go.
Okay. Well, just from a different perspective, I don't think we always need to stay positive. And I think that, sometimes we embrace the negative. We think about our top stories that we had at the very beginning. There's some negativity in that stories, in the situations and the feelings that those people were going through in the very beginning. And then how do you turn it around? Sometimes it takes a village. Sometimes it's just an inner working that happens within you. But if I flip this now I want to flip it to like my depression. And when I'm in a really bad negative place from the internal mind, it's about having the tools and the people that surround you that have helped me the most. So sometimes I'll turn to a friend like Apryl. It's like, hey, Apryl, I need a co-working thing, and we need to do a dance party every 20 minutes. Or, I need to do some self-care. Am I making sure that I'm looking after myself and all those kinds of things? Am I eating properly and drinking properly? And then looking to community, but also what is it that fills me up? My whole word for the year of being joyful rebellion. What is it that brings me joy, and how do I turn it around? Those are the things I lean on when I'm in that depression. And sometimes it's not about being positive. It's more just about focusing on the fact that this is actually happening. It's something that's not going away. It's here right now. I'm going to acknowledge it, and I'm going to get through it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. If I had to answer that same question, but give something different, because I love everything that you just said. I think that it really starts with, in order to actually impact change where you don't even like notice that you're changing it. I think that it really becomes a question of how do you practice and how do you exercise that positivity muscle, right? Because I have said this many, many times, but the way that I deal with problems now, as opposed to dealing with problems 5 years ago, is wildly different. I would spin into this tizzy. I would like blame myself. I'd beat myself up. I would get mad at whoever else was involved. I would just sit there and I would stew. And a lot of the practices that I always share is just like, how do you practice gratitude? How do you take every situation and, be patient with yourself, but say, okay, this is not ideal, but here's the positive of it. And getting into that space, like it's to the point where like, oh, I'm having a fight with so-and-so. Oh my gosh, it's only like bothering me for 5 minutes versus 5 days because I have been working at it and saying, how does this make me feel? What is it that I'm telling myself? How can I tell myself differently? How can I make sure that I'm doing everything on my side of things? Because I know that when there is a conflict with somebody or something external, I don't necessarily have control over that other side. I only have control of me. And so always constantly having that conversation with myself, asking myself the questions on, is this the way that I want to show up? Can I do it better? do I keep this going? Do I put this in like my mental like backpack of like carry this around with me? How do I do that? And it's always just having that relationship with yourself is the key. And if you want to change and you are committed to the change, then it will happen if you just do a little bit by little. You don't need to do this like big, huge overhaul overnight. So.
And I don't think it's sustainable, right?
Yes.
We can't just jump ship. So
totally. So
yeah, love it.
All right. Well, I guess that's our episode for the day. Thank you guys so much for watching. For those of you who were on live or watching this on the replay. But again, if you if you're on YouTube, all of my episodes are there, and we will have our next episode in a couple weeks, in the second Wednesday of October. Can you believe it's October already? And super, super excited for that. And Angela, thank you so much. It's so great to like sit with you for an hour and talk about a topic that we're both so passionate about. And yeah, we need to have a dance party again. Very, very maybe after we hang this up.
Okay.
All right, everyone. We will see you very, very soon. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.